Good evening. This is the Athens City Shade Tree Commission meeting for August 10th, 2017. We have no tree permit or right-of-way issues, so we'll move straight to Title 37 issues, and we've got Oakview Dermatology. And if you'd like to come up to the podium, introduce yourself, and then introduce the plan.
Thank you, David. My name is Tim Snyder. I'm president of CM Midwest, New Albany, Ohio. And with me this evening, I have Zach Hedrick, who's the business manager for our client, which is a locally based dermatology group, Oakview Dermatology. Some of you may know Dr. Don Salmons. They're currently housed in the Castrop Center, and we are preparing to build them a new 2-story medical office building that I think is pretty darn sharp, as you can see from the rendering. The site is located out adjacent to Holzer Medical Center out on East State Street. The property was actually purchased from Holzer approximately 2 months ago by Dr. Salmons and her company. And we are here to talk about shade trees tonight. And I had the opportunity to meet with David at the site a couple weeks ago. We talked about a couple of things. We have submitted a letter this evening regarding the floodway that David had requested. And I just wanted to point out that with the building, Dr. Salmons' charge to us was to come up with something that was a little warmer than a typical medical office. She wanted it kind of earthy, kind of a warmer feeling. And so we came up with this, and I think at least at this point, Zach, you have to back me up on this, she loves the plan. So we hopefully we get our approval through the process working with Mr. Royce. We're going to hopefully start this project prior to the end of the year. It's approximately 20,000 square feet building footprint, 2 stories. It will be a conventionally constructed commercial building. Will be structural steel metal studs. It will have wood truss roof on it with a standing seam architectural metal roof. The building will have some dry laid stacked stone. The siding will be a pre-finished cement board siding, low maintenance for the project. So we're doing everything pretty much first class with the building. Any questions on the building that anybody has?
What will be the elevation above the flood?
The current property is about 3 feet above the base flood elevation. And the property, there was a FEMA zoning map amendment that was done for the property, and none of the sites that you see here is in the floodway. Now, we do have issues with the floodway down toward the river. There's a fairly steep embankment. Any of you have been out there that know that same with Holzer, it drops off pretty well. We've noted on here the limits of the floodway where that embankment starts down over the hill to the river. We did our calculations and submitted those to David and went through our calculations here. And based on the permeable and impermeable areas out of the floodway, we are required to have 44 shade trees. And that's what we are showing. We're showing 44, which is compliant with the Shade Tree Commission Code. The area in the floodway, when I met with David, he had suggested that if we would be comfortable with it, we could submit a letter stating that we would leave that untouched and let that reforest naturally, which it has done on properties on either side. There is some sycamore growth down there now, and we've submitted a letter to the commission this evening stating that.
And I have a copy of the letter here if anybody wants to see it.
What are the trees in the parking lot?
We have got 4 species of trees called out now. We have some hybrid red maples, black gums, American linden, and little leaf linden that we are proposing. One of the things that we will be doing after we get our zoning approval is I have talked with a landscape architect in Columbus that has prior experience with the commission. They did work on Rivergate, if you folks remember that, the student housing project. And we will have them going through not only our list of species of trees, making sure that they're the right ones for that situation, but also to do some perimeter landscaping around the building.
But those are shade trees rather than small flowering trees.
Yes, they are shade trees.
Since it's Oak View, I think it would be very nice if they had some oaks out there too.
That's a very good point.
And you can have a variety of oaks so that you can achieve genetic diversity as well as a difference in appearance, which may have more of a...
I'll certainly mention that to them, and you know, we will be doing a set of landscape drawings that we will be submitting to Rick's office at the conclusion of that process. We just haven't started it yet, obviously, because we don't have our zoning approval.
So
and I take it that that big tree that is shown in the picture of the building is not a tree that is already in existence there.
There are no trees on that site at all. That was, I think, filled about 10 or 12 years ago by a local contractor that constructed the site for the Holzer Medical Center Clinic in that area in there. The acreage that Dr. Salmons purchased is about 3.8 acres, two of which is out of the floodway, and about an acre and a half is in the floodway.
Yeah, and that's the piece that I got the letter about, because if you first of all ask how many trees we should have on that area, you can actually use the 40%, which is the floodway area, and say if they reforest that or they allow it to be reforested, and there are a lot of small trees there already, then they've met essentially the number of trees they need for this area. But then they have to plant trees around the parking lot and the buildings, and again, in my view, they are meeting that requirement. In fact, they're exceeding it slightly, which is good. We like that.
Is the part you're talking about down to the river, or?
Yeah. It's on the south side of it's on the left-hand side. It isn't actually shown on that drawing.
I think some of the governmental agencies are responsible for deciding what goes on in those
Well,
areas.
they're allowing trees to be grown on that area.
Well, they've got some pollinator places too. It's another option.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at the property adjacent to it, it's now reforested. And if they allow this to happen the same way, it will reforest. We don't need to intervene with that.
I think it fits in with our plan too, because one of the things that we're doing with the building is the entryway will be a full 2-story glass entryway, and it has a rear patio that some of the clients that come to the dermatology practice could possibly be there all day, particularly ones that are getting you know, surgery. So it gives them a place to go out that's very warm, very cozy, and look out on the landscape.
Tree view.
Yeah, yeah. So are there any other questions? Okay.
Well, wish you luck.
I take it we have no objections to approving the plan?
I don't have an objection, but I'm so happy to see shade trees in the parking lot, because that's our whole thrust here.
Yeah.
But I just have a question. Putting parking lots in front doesn't give as good a feeling as putting parking lots in the rear. It's not so important here because it's going to be far out anyway. But is there a philosophical reason for doing that, or are you just following custom?
Customary, I think, and again, obviously with this site, it would be physically impossible because of the floodway, and we couldn't build in that area anyway.
Oh, but the building could be closer to the road,
oh, yes.
And the parking lot could be behind in terms of the flooding.
Also, I think part of the philosophy was also we've got a lot of glass out the back, a lot of windows on the back, and the intent, a lot of the exam rooms have windows facing the back. Actually provided a better scenic view. Kind of part of the strategic plan. We have a Mohs surgeon, but what Tim was kind of elaborating, that can be an all-day process, and there's a specialized waiting room for that is currently designed to be facing out the back, as well as a covered patio for those people. So it'll actually provide a little better scenery, where if the parking lot were behind the building, we wouldn't be able to take advantage of that.
Okay. Well, I think you have our approval.
Thank you very much.
I'll give Rick these letters at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. It is great to see a plan in action.
You're up next. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
My name's Art Ostrick with Jackie O's, and I'm wondering if you got my email. Art with Jackie O's, and we had an agreement 3 years ago, I'd like to say, on the Stimson Avenue project. And through the build out and what we figured out as we went through the process that we needed, we ran out of room. So I'm here to try to come towards a solution. With the roundabout project that's happening right by the brewery, I've talked to Jessica Dean quite a bit, through Andy, and also with Mr. Soroyce a little bit, about us supplying some of the trees for that project. I have a list of, I believe it was 20 trees we
I
came
believe
to,
that's
is
right,
that right?
yes. Yeah.
And through OU Landscape Design, as well as the city, they came up with a list on their kind of plan for that that gateway on McKinley. Let's see here, so it was 3 common hackberries, 7 American sycamores, 2 black oaks, and 8 pioneer elms, throughout, kind of lining McKinley Avenue through there. So we have room for a couple behind our building, which we could do, but I was just kind of here trying to talk about that and see where I should go.
So basically you're asking us to defer the planting of the trees on the property to somewhere adjacent to the property. Is it actually a city right-of-way, that area? Or is it a university right-of-way?
I think it's the university.
Yeah, okay. But this would be, so the university then would be maintaining these trees?
Most likely.
Okay.
That's what I had heard from Jessica and the city.
Okay. So if the city's confident that the university's going to maintain them,
I'm not speaking to that.
Okay.
I was informed that they are 2-inch caliper trees,
Yeah.
14 foot, and they'd be going in by, I can't recall exactly the contractor, but who's working alongside them throughout that project.
Well, I would hope they wouldn't try and rush it before November, because in this area you want to be planting fairly late in the fall if you're going to plant trees like those. So the reason I think that you can't plant the trees on the property is because there's no space left.
There's not enough room for the amount of space we want to have between those trees that we had talked about. And whenever I was here, I believe around 3 years ago, we kind of discussed how it would be very tight behind that building for that. And there's also a lot of utilities right underneath there. There's a main sewer line running. It's pretty deep, but it is running right underneath that area between us and Athens. Okay.
So it's not just that you decided that you wanted to expand further and then later thought, oh, trees,
No.
No,
no, not at all. I've been trying to figure out a good way to do this and to get those, whether the bank term or however that works, but we want to do it around our facility if possible to beautify that area, and working with this this project, I think it makes a lot of sense.
But if there is room there to put in a couple of trees, wouldn't that be advantageous for you as well? Because shading would be cooler, there would be, and I don't know what your plans are, but when I've been out there before, there was outdoor seating, and whenever you have that, it's really nice to have some shade.
Some trees did get planted, correct?
In the back, we had a couple that didn't go so well, and a lot of stuff has changed throughout that project, so that didn't work out very well.
So no trees around the building at all?
No.
There are no trees at all?
There are some to the southeast corner of the build out that are right in an area. A few trees are on our property and a few are on the Sonic property, as well as on the OU right of way / city. Not sure who's got what just at this moment, but
no, I'm familiar with the site, and don't think you can plant trees. Where
I would love to put some in the front, honestly, that would be fantastic. And we've got these nice big planters and put a bunch of grasses in and things like that to try to get some green in that location, but it's pretty landlocked with roads coming through and the parking lot where it was, and yeah, it'd be tough to fit them in on the front, for sure.
So we need agreement of 2/3 of us at least that he should be able to bank these trees.
So, but the banking, and then they're going to plant them on university property?
Well, they're going to pay for the trees that will then be planted
on
and maintained by the
and maintained. I mean, this is the benefit to the city as far as I'm concerned, that we're not shuffling off the maintenance of these trees onto the city. They're actually going on to the universities. That's right. Maintenance bill.
At a significant cost increase, I might have to. So yeah, it would be much more expensive if we had the room to put them there, but due to that maintenance and I think the trees are guaranteed for a couple of years that they'll get replaced.
They're normally guaranteed for at least a year.
Okay.
Yes. That's the normal.
I would approve it. Partially, you know, it's going very close to the property, and the maintenance being a third party. And the site is really difficult to. There's parking lots all around, and
I just wonder what went awry. I mean, what if we were to do this process again, what would you suggest we would have done differently?
Well, I think that not knowing how big and what was going on, so there was a couple issues with our underground, the underground utilities, especially water, sewer going out, because it runs back under to the, if you go underneath, behind the brewery and Athens Molding Machine, there's an old 2-foot pipe running, main sewer going out, and that's proved problematic for the building and where we could build and how that changed during the project.
And this is not the first time this has happened. We, if you remember, that before the ordinance was changed to allow us to bank trees, I think it was Cornwall development on Stimpson Avenue. They had a similar problem, that there was a large they had to change the plan radically, and so we didn't finish up with all the trees. And so this is not unusual to have this.
If I could change anything, I would have came and talked to you soon.
So are there any objections then to us banking the trees? Okay, so there's no objection to banking the trees, in which case we already know it's 20 trees. Therefore, I don't think we even need to discuss approving it.
That's fine. Just shoot me an email in next.
Yep, I'll send you an email approving the banking of the trees.
Perfect. And they'll be in the ground, I think, this fall?
Yes, hopefully, yes.
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Nice selection of species.
Yeah. I don't have a report from Ron Lucas. The only thing I've got to comment on is we have a South East Ohio Tree Care Conference coming up in the fall in September.
28th, I believe.
28th of September. I was going to ask somebody if they knew, because
Happy birthday.
I'd forgotten to write that down. So if anyone's interested in the South East Ohio Tree Conference, please contact Ann Bonner at the ODNR office on East State Street. And with that, I'd like, Brad, if you'd like to come up to the podium and just introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello. My name is Brad McKean. I recently saw that this meeting was going on. I'm from Minnesota, moved here about a year ago. I work for a public works department under the city forester, and I went to a couple tree board meetings. I have a degree in urban forestry from Stevens Point, certified arborist. Yeah, I was interested in coming here and listening to the different views on how we did it back in Minnesota and here. And back in Minnesota, for a while I was the emerald ash borer specialist for the city. I have a lot of knowledge on the emerald ash borer, but I see down here it's way worse than you have in Minnesota. Every ash tree is just dead or dying.
And that didn't happen in Minnesota then?
In Minnesota they controlled it quite a bit, because it was reached Minnesota a little bit later than other states. And so like for the city, we started doing, so it was a suburb of the Twin Cities, Oakdale, Minnesota, probably about 24 to 27,000 people. So we started doing tree injections for the top 10% quality trees. We did a big tree rating. So anything that got a rating of 7 or higher got treated, 4 or lower got removed. Then treatments are every 3 years, so we did that. And then next a little bit later, we did the next 10% highest we kept injected and got rid of. So it's interesting seeing down here how bad emerald ash borer is hit.
Yeah, our plan here, which was developed about 10 years ago, was to obviously not plant any more emerald ash trees, but also to simply, at that time it was not thought to be effective, but we could treat the trees.
And expensive.
And it was expensive, and so the decision was to allow the trees to die, remove them as they became a hazard. And that initially there was some pressure on us to recommend preemptively removing the ash trees, and we didn't want to do that. We took out small ash trees that clearly weren't thriving and things like that, but we wanted to keep the trees as long as we could. Do you recall how much per tree it was costing for the treatment?
It's about $5 per diameter inch per treatment.
Did you say $5?
Per diameter
$5
inch.
per inch.
So the bigger the tree, the more money you spend. So 24-inch tree, you're looking at $120-something.
And it's for tree injections. If you use triage, if you do it, tree care companies try to make you do it 2 years, just because then they get you to do it more. But so that 3 years is like 98% effective, or 2 years is 98% effective, 3 years is 95% effective. So
that's pretty good.
So we had doing a 3-year cycle. But
we'd known that.
Right when Minnesota got emerald ash borer, there was a lot of grants that were sent out to cities. So that's why the initial funding was, I think for the first 2 cycles, was just funded through grants.
And they were state grants, were they? We didn't have any funding like that available to us.
In Minnesota, it's debatable whether emerald ash borer can survive in northern Minnesota, the temperature. So, but I've done a couple of projects on emerald ash borer.
Well, welcome to the Athens community. It's good to see another certified arborist here.
We need to.
Any volunteer work back for the city? In volunteer projects?
Well, I'm going to give your name to Ron Lucas, the Assistant Service Safety Director, because he at times does need people to help out with tree projects. We're going to have a project in the fall again for clearing vines. I'm looking down to my colleague at the end there, who's going to provide some of the student help to do that. But we've got a bike path that you may have found in the city, and there's a section of it where we planted trees 15 years ago now, and every now and again we try and go through and just cut the vines, not actually physically removing them, just stopping them growing basically, and that helps out. The trees are now getting mature enough that they can survive, I think.
I know.
You know about the tree workshop that?
Southeastern Ohio Tree Care Conference, September 28th. ODNR. If you go down to the ODNR building, you can sign up.
And you should introduce yourself to Ann Bonner. She is our urban forester, a free resource for all people who've got trees in the city. You can call her up and ask for advice.
Do you require any kind of ongoing education for certification?
What?
Do you require ongoing educational credits for
certification?
So you can get them there? You can get them at this conference?
And one other thing I like to mention, like for, I don't know, I thought one cool thing that we did for the city for getting volunteers on is we did STS, Sent to Serve. You know, had that down here. Or we had the Conservation Corps. That's an option. But those were two ways that if we had big projects to do, we were able to do some of those big invasive species and those species.
Very good. Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For coming back.
Yeah.
Minutes of the last meeting, unless there's anything else people want to raise. No, well, we've got the minutes of the last meeting.
At the community center, there was a tree that was planted by women who had lost children. It is not doing well, that particular tree.
Really?
I think it's an oak, and it still has some of the ribbons that were put on it, but it's got about 25% tree cover, and the top of it is dead. It is right in front of the playground as you come into the community center.
Where I come in, too.
Yeah, we'll check it out, because it would be nice for that tree to be replanted if it doesn't live. There's
I had another thought.
There's a plaque there in the ground already. So
there's they cut down the 3 dead and dying ash trees that I had mentioned, and there was one tree that was cut and left sort of, I don't know, like 10 feet tall or something. It's kind of maybe 8 feet tall. Anyway, I was thinking maybe we should have a monument to ash trees. I mean, it's like they're all gone. We should have some sort of
we should acknowledge them until we get the emerald ash borer resistant variety.
What we could do is have a plaque. We could start with the chestnuts and goodbye to
But I like the history needs to remember this kind of thing.
Yeah, that's true.
We've had 6 trees taken down in our yard, so I'm moving the monument in place, you know.
You may have earned it, yeah, you may have earned it.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's one right across the street from me, that's what I see. Gone.
Okay, the minutes, right?
Minutes.
Is that what you?
Yes.
Yeah.
If there's, it was a very short meeting.
I will motion to accept.
Thank you, David.
I
Thank you, Nancy. Are there any objections to approving the minutes of the last meeting? Hearing none, we have minutes. Our next meeting, which will still be at 7 p.m. in the council chamber, will be September 14th. I'm thinking of possibly starting the move to the 4 o'clock meetings in October. So that will be, and I need to talk to the clerk of the council to see what is available, what the best Wednesday afternoon would be. But the plan would be for a Wednesday afternoon at 4 o'clock.
Wednesday afternoon.
A Wednesday afternoon at 4 o'clock. That's my best day. That's why I'm choosing that. So if there are particular Wednesdays in the month that people have got certain conflicts with, then we can shuffle around. But
I have to rush home and change because I have yoga at 2, and you don't want to hear my ears.
Okay. Anyway, with that, we are adjourned until September. Thank you.